Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about fate and free will. Whether fate and free will are notions that have to be accepted, or you can actually look into them from a more practical way. And of course, we're going to look at the birth chart as well, whether you are able to see from the chart itself how much or how little free will you were born with. First of all, I firmly believe that human beings are born with free choice. I know that Eastern philosophies deny this. I'm not going to argue with anyone. You may believe whatever you feel like it, but I at the same time have realized many times in my life that yes, I do have free choice. And free choice is probably the closest to what I call free will. Of course, will is defined in astrology by mass. So if you look at your mass and you look at its sign and look at its placement, you can already define how much will you were born with, how strong your will is. Probably I believe in free will because I have an Aries mass, which makes it a lot easier. But let's look at the chart, those chart details that show or indicate that you might not have too much free will. Well, the first indicator that you have chosen a life, an incarnation where you would like to tread on a very narrow path, is when you have a grand cross between the ascendant, descendant, and CIC angles. And when I say tight, it has to be tight, I suggest you work with 1.5 degrees, unless you have something on the angles or those points. But usually if it's just the angles, then you should limit your orb to 1.5 degrees, because these are non-radiating points in a chart. And also if the birth time is not accurate, it could mean that you're delineating something that is not really there. So please use very tight orbs. So that's one thing, that's one indicator. And it's very easy to realize why, because simply if those points are squaring each other, it means that if you don't feel too well, you might have a big fight at home, or you might not be successful at your profession, or you might have a big major problem or fallout with your partner. Same thing, when you have a major fallout with your partner, that disables you to feel happy at home and profoundly manage your career. So you can see that if you fall from one point, really the rest are also kind of falling apart. So that is why it's so difficult. You might ask, why on earth has anyone chosen such a chart where these chart points are clashing with each other, and especially if it's in a fixed sign, that's going to be very difficult. You never know the whys. I can only answer you by utilizing what I've learned from regressions, that the soul would like to be successful. And sometimes when you have sabotaged a couple of lifetimes, not doing what you have prepared to come to do, you are mad at yourself and you decide to come back now with very little free will in a very narrow scope of life, and then you will have finished what you have planned. So this is usually the reason. It might also be because you have exercised exercised a large amount of free will previously and you misused it, and you don't want to misuse it. So that might be another issue there. So it's always a conscious choice how much free will you are allowing yourself to exercise on the earth plane. And we have to understand the whys, the reasons behind this choice. But you always have to remember that you made the choice up there and you have to live with it down here. And that is really going to make it very, very difficult to accept. I always say that it seemed like a bright idea up there, which doesn't have, but at least you can laugh at yourself. So what else? Well, for instance, if you have Saturn on your ascendant, spot on, okay? That is really making your life very limited again, because the Lord of Karma doesn't allow you to exercise your energies freely. You feel squashed, you feel limited, you feel hindered all the time. It's a very difficult life usually when you have Saturn around the ascendant. I would suggest, again, a tight orb, maybe 4 or 5 degrees from the first house and maybe 2 or 3 degrees from the 12th. That is usually an indicator of limited free will. Also, the point of vertex, if it is conjunct a personal planet, especially the sun, that could be also limiting, because the vertex is the point of lacking free will, missing totally, where things can happen to you that you are no longer able to have power over it. So that's also difficult. At the same time, you can be very successful with it. So again, the choice was yours up there, where you decided to give yourself a limited scope, but within that limited scope, you can be very successful. So that's one thing to remember. And then, of course, you have Mars Saturn aspects, which indicate that you are blocking your will. I call this planetary combination the impotence aspect. And it's not necessarily sexual, but of course it could be a fixed square. It could very well have its manifestations in physical impotence, but all sorts of impotence, inability to move, inability to act. That's usually the Mars Saturn hard aspects. And then there is a point, a galactic point, which is called the Great Attractor. It is the center of Laniakea. And Laniakea is our family of galaxies, where the Milky Way is just one among zillions of galaxies. And the center of Laniakea is probably something close to a black hole, but it's not a black hole. It's quite interesting. It's called the Galactic Anomaly because it is swallowing large amounts of cosmic matter, but it's also allowing it to escape on the other side. So they don't actually know what it is. It's currently at Sagittarius 14 degrees. These galactic points move just as slowly as any fixed star. But with fixed stars, we usually allow a 1 degree orb and only conjunctions and maybe parallels, but then you give like a quarter of a degree orb. And with these galactic points, you are allowed to use 2 degrees. So if you have anything important between Sagittarius 12 degrees and Sagittarius 16 degrees, you might probably have this point prominent, which means that the dilemma of how your free will is working is always, it's going to be a major issue in your life. How much free will you have, what are the issues when you have to understand, when you have to accept fate. Actually, the vertex is also some sort of fatal point. So it works similarly, but the vertex is something that is moving very fast, and really just a couple of degrees in the rising sign puts it somewhere else, 2-3 degrees someplace else. So if you think you have it prominent and then your life is not full of mishaps, you probably have a wrong chart. Whereas the great attractor is not moving anywhere. It's there at 14 degrees Sagittarius. So that is very prominent and very, very much manifesting if you have it, and you will recognize its workings. So let's now look at what gives you free will. So what are the free will indicators in the birth chart? Well, number one, there is such an aspect as free will. The Mars, Uranus trine or conjunction or bidirectional quincunx or any of the so-called quintile series, that gives you free will. That gives you sometimes an unlimited energy of free will at your disposal. That's one thing. If you have a strong Mars in fire signs with good aspects, that's another indication that you can exercise your free will. If you have your angles in a mystic rectangle, which means that your ascendant is making a trine either to the midheaven or the IC, and then your descendant is also making a trine and a sextile to those points. It forms a mystic rectangle, and it usually indicates that whenever you have the difficulty in one of those spheres of life, you yourself versus your partner versus your family, home versus your future and aspirations, then when you have a difficulty, then you are able to stabilize your situation from the rest of the three other points, utilizing their energies or utilizing the help that are radiating to you from those points. So that's something that is quite good, let's put it this way. Anything else, like, the anti-vertex, if you're working with it, it's opposite the vertex, which is the point of free will. And if you have this conjunct with a planet or anything in the it's usually in the eastern side of the chart, most prominently in the 11th, 12th, first and second houses, sometimes in the third, usually not the last portion. So it's never close to the IC or the MC, especially when you have it in the first house. The first house is your life path. You have the vertex, the anti-vertex in the first house. It indicates that you have free will. You can exercise your free will on your life path. Mind you, it also means that you have the vertex in the 7th, which indicates that you don't have free will regarding partnerships and relationships. So everything comes with a pinch of salt or with some added negative attractions. Never easy, never just nice and shiny. There's always a price you need to pay. Okay. So that's it really. So that's really for beginners, because if you look at those points and you can examine that in your own chart, you will see how it works, and you can actually determine how much free will you have. And the more you have, the better off you are, because life is easier with free choice. And if you don't have too much, even then you can learn to utilize it, and you can learn how to work with limited free will. I wish you good luck with everything. Bye.